Hey guys, it's Joel from guntoner.org. Just wanted to talk to you today a little bit about a new product that I've been playing with. I guess it's not all that new, but it's the first times I've had a chance to get my hands on it. Obviously, there's probably a lot of us. I know I'm stuck here at my house due to the coronavirus pandemic. Can't go to the range. And I was looking for something that I could use that would kind of be in addition to my dry fire training and would kind of add a little bit more realism and some more capability to that training. So I live right near actually I think it is the largest airsoft field on the East Coast, which is Ballahack Airsoft. Been in their store before, I've looked around, both my kids have airsoft guns, and I saw that they have licensed copies of Glock handguns. Well, I carry a Glock handgun on duty, I also carry a Glock handgun off duty. So I thought maybe now, since I was looking for options, be a great time to get my hands on one and try it out. So, talk a little bit about the Umarex Glock 17. This is a CO2. They do make a green gas blowback. However, I went with the CO2 one just because it tends to get chilly here in Virginia, and I've been told that you get a little bit better performance during cold weather with the CO2 versus the green gas. So I went with the CO2, but there is a green gas option if you're looking for that. Now, a little bit of background. For people who maybe haven't been around airsoft, for the longest time, Glock did not license their handguns. So you would get companies that were making like sort of Glocks. Like they're supposed to be a Glock, but they didn't exactly fit in all the Glock holsters. And there was a lot of kind of little things that just didn't make it work quite right. So Glock has finally, I guess, caught on that there's a market for a licensed copy of their gun. There's a couple companies that make them, but this particular one is Elite Force Airsoft / Umarex USA. This is the 17 Gen 4. They do have some Gen 3s. They do have a 19. They have a 19X. So there's a couple different options. I went with the 17 because my duty gun is a 22. Therefore, it's the same size and I can practice with it, and you know, I can just carry over back and forth. So some of the thoughts. Show you the gun real quick. So this is the Glock 17. It is a polymer frame. It does actually have a metal barrel and slide. It is fully reciprocating, so when you get the recoil, it does actually recoil. You can also do almost all of the standard functions that you would do with the Glock 17 with this gun. So I can lock the slide to the rear, I can show clear, just like I would with a regular gun. Magazine release, the trigger is actually more accurate than a lot of other training tools I've used. I had certs for a while for any those of you who ever played with the laser indicating guns. The trigger on this is actually a lot closer to the actual Glock trigger than the cert is. It doesn't have that weird sudden break with the click that just kind of drove me a little bit crazy about the certs. As far as fitting into holsters or other equipment, I do not have my light on here right now, but I did put one of my stream lights on here. It fits perfectly with the Glock adapter. This is a Safariland 7TS with the ALS, as you can see. Locks in securely, draws with no issues. So the fact that Glock actually went out and licensed this gun is a huge deal because it works a lot better with holsters and all the other accessories. So some positives on this gun. Obviously, big positive is it actually works with the accessories. And you can do almost all the functions on this gun that you could do on a real gun in your dry fire or in your live fire, with the exception of setting up malfunctions. The only malfunction that you could set up on this gun would be a magazine reload. So you wouldn't be able to set up, like a double feed or anything like that. At least, not that I've tried. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I haven't been able to do that yet. Like I said, the trigger is actually much closer as far as how it feels, how it works, than like the cert or some of the other guns. And it really does function almost exactly like a Glock. Now, I was going to cover this later, but since that happened, I'll cover it now. You are supposed to use a silicone based lubricant. Elite Force does sell their own. I have not bought it yet. All I have in my house is my standard petroleum based pistol lubricants, and they say not to use that. So I've not oiled this thing, but I will have to do that as soon as I can get a chance to order it. You can order it directly from Elite Force Airsoft. You can order it from, I'm pretty sure they have it on Amazon, so it's easy to get a hold of. Now, I mentioned that this does reciprocate, and also it will lock to the rear. Now, I'm having some issues with my microphone. For whatever reason, it doesn't like sharp clicking sounds, like, you know, when this Airsoft goes off or when I put the slide forward. So what I'll do is I'll demo it, and then I'm gonna wait a second, let the microphone reset, and then I'll continue the conversation. So as you can see, you can extend out. And then you get slide lock, just like you would with a regular pistol. Now, obviously you can see here, it doesn't lock all the way to the rear, but it does still give you that chance to get the feedback and to be able to respond off to that. The magazines are aluminum, and they actually have this CO2 canister inside. It uses little 12-gram CO2 canisters. You can buy them at Walmart, super cheap. That's actually where I got my CO2. The magazine is fairly heavy, all things considered, because it is metal versus the standard polymer. And so it does drop free pretty well, especially with the CO2 canister inside it. All right, so talk a little bit about the neutrals. We talked about the positive as far as the functionality of the gun. A couple of the neutrals. One is that the weight is not quite right. It's a little bit light. It's actually about 6 ounces lighter than my unloaded real Glock 19. So that may bother somebody. It doesn't really bother me. You still get, you know, the reciprocating slide, you still get the feedback, and, you know, the fact that it functions so well, to me, it makes it a win. But I want to throw that out there because some people may not like that. But as for other things is what I've been, like I said a minute ago, this does require a silicone lubricant. Once again, it's not expensive, it's easy to get. Haven't done it yet, but I got to. The only reason I throw that out there is because you can't just throw whatever your gun lubricant is on here. It will wear out some of the parts, especially some of the seals that the CO2 and everything, because a lot of the seals and some of the small parts in here are rubber. So you can't use a petroleum-based lubricant on this. You have to use a silicone-based lubricant. It's not a big deal, but it's one more thing you have to keep track of. You know, just kind of keep that in mind. Now, as far as negatives go, there are a few negatives. The biggest one I've found, it advertises that it comes with back straps. Naturally, it's a Gen 4, it should have back straps. The downside is, I tried putting a back strap on the other day. They really executed the back straps poorly, which is frustrating because I really wanted to have that on there. But what you get is when you install the back strap, you get this weird lip right about in here, which if I've got my hand up in there, after a while that's going to start rubbing, and that's going to hurt. Now granted, it's not going to hurt as bad as a real gun with real recoil, but it is going to get annoying after a while. It actually kind of baffles me a little bit because they did such a good job on all the dimensions and the functionality of the rest of the gun. The fact that they messed up the back straps, it's just weird to me that happened. The other thing is the pin that came with the back strap is short, like really short. Now, for those of you who have Gen 4s and you've put the back straps on, even the Glock factory ones are a little bit short, but this one's like very short. So that's probably the biggest negative. Now, one other thing that has been mentioned to me, I haven't actually seen it yet because my gun's pretty new. I haven't had a chance to really run it, but I've been told that these floor plates are fragile. It's an aluminum magazine, and it feels like a fairly cheap plastic floor plate. I've had some guys tell me that even, you know, working in their backyard on a soft surface, they've had them break after repeated drops. that would be very annoying to me, because this is a $45 magazine, and if it gets put out of service by a cheap piece of plastic, that's going to annoy me. With that said, we may be able to order extras. I'll probably go down to Ballahack at some point once I can go in the store again and ask them if there's a way to get extras, because they're pretty good. They have a pretty good relationship with manufacturers, and they're pretty good about being responsive to their customers, so I may give that a try. I did look on the internet earlier. I found a few aluminum CNC milled ones that you can get as replacements. I have not tried any of those yet, because depending on which one you get, they're $18 to $32. I don't need a $70 Airsoft mag right now. Maybe if this breaks and I can't get a replacement, I'll try the aluminum. But for now, I'm just going to run it till it breaks, and then, you know, if it breaks, I'll report back on my options after that. So, talked about all the good stuff, talked about the neutrals, talked about the negatives. So overall, what do I think of the gun? I think it fills a niche in your training, right? So dry fire is awesome. In fact, dry fire is incredibly important in your training. But there's limitations, especially with like a Glock, for example. Glocks are striker fired. Every time you pull a trigger, you have to reset it. That's kind of annoying, and it can limit, you know, what you can do. There are some, like there's a magazine you can get that will give you a second trigger pull. So there are some options out there. But having to reset that does limit what you can do, especially when you're getting to like multi-target engagement, even multiple rounds on the same target. It's hard to dry fire that. So the Airsoft pistols kind of fill that niche and allow you to do that. Another thing is, if you wanted to do force on force, you can actually set up force on force scenarios with your Airsoft. It's inexpensive. You know, BBs are super cheap. And then, you know, even the protective gear is basically just a paintball mask and long sleeves. So it's an inexpensive way to be able to do some force on force, as long as you structure it correctly and it doesn't turn into like a, you know, paintball battle in your backyard. But that's an option. Obviously, there are other training options that might be a little more realistic than the Airsoft. UTM has a conversion that you can get that goes right on your Glock, and you can use it. The downside is, for example, I looked them up today. The upper for a UTM is $446, and then the ammo is 70 cents a round. I mean, I'm not rich. Maybe some of you are. Maybe you won the lottery and you got UTMs laying everywhere, but I can't afford that kind of money for practice. This gun was $160. Comes with one magazine. I bought an extra magazine for $45. So for $200, I've got two magazines and the gun, and I'm not paying 70 cents a round to practice. You know, I spend 15 bucks and get 5,000 BBs. It's so much cheaper. So I really do think that Airsoft guns, especially this particular gun, do give you a lot of options. It adds a capability to your training that you can't necessarily get with straight dry fire, and it's a lot cheaper than, you know, driving all the way to the range and shooting live, especially when, you know, you're stuck and you can't go do that. Now, it's not a complete replacement for live fire. You still need to do live fire. You need to have that live feedback and be able to work with the targets and you know, read your targets and figure out what you're doing from that. But as an in-between, it's really an awesome option. So I hope this has been useful for you. I'll take a minute and I'll go ahead and say, please hit like, please hit follow. If you have questions, feel free to hit me up. You can hit me up on my Facebook page. You can hit me up at the email. I'll have the email in the description. I don't know, Google Hangouts, all sorts of stuff. Facebook Messenger, you know, whatever you want to do. If you got comments, questions, whatever, hit me up. So thanks for watching. I hope you all have a great day.